Hello, everybody. Um, let's make sure that you guys can hear me and see me clearly before I get going. This is this is a little bit of like an impromptu thing, so everything is kind of very quickly being put together. Yay! Okay. Hello. All right. You are about to be severely inundated with animals because I'm right literally in the middle of filming this month's episodes, and um, it's a makeup episode, so I can't have any cat hair or cat anything around. So I've been keeping them sequestered upstairs, and so they have just been going completely stir crazy. And for your entertainment, I tidied up my work area and just had Bisco release them. So you're probably going to be seeing a lot of them sort of climbing all over me and sort of going bananas. So just embrace yourself for that. I hope you guys are all doing okay. We just talked like 2 weeks ago, and this wasn't even something that was brought up. I didn't even know this was like a serious thing until 10 days ago when somebody sent me um, like a video of like a scientist sort of breaking everything down, and I was like, oh, oh, this is kind of serious. And so I don't know, it's all anybody can talk or think about. And I mean, I'm falling into that boat as well. But I just kind of think, you know, I love doing what I'm doing, and I love that there are people that want to see it. And I just figure, if you've got lemons, let's make some lemonade. So I figure we can do some fun crafting. The truth is, if you're staying home and you're avoiding people, you are really doing the best you can do. So I figure we should have some fun while we're home and sort of fiddling around. So that's kind of what this was. Um I did a full craft project in December where we spent, I think it was like 8 hours together. And at the end of it, it worked out. Nobody died. But at the end of it, I felt like I was literally just gonna collapse. But because obviously, oh, we can't hear you. Oh no, that's not a good sign. Hold on one second. Please louder. I'm talking away from the mic, and that might be a problem. Hold on. It's a little difficult to hear you. Is that better? I feel like you were fine when you lean. I can hear you. Sound is fine, thank you. Let me wiggle this little thing around a little bit. Okay. Right now I feel like what's that SNL skit with Anna Gasteyer and Molly Shannon where they're talking about um I think you like if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to talk very softly and turning my volume. Oh my god, am I talking too loud now? All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think of how, I don't think this is very mobile. Let's see. I think I can wiggle this thing around. And it might be bonking me. Okay. So I'm going to go back into my rant now, but I want to make sure you can hear me clearly. So say yes a bunch of times if you can. Good to go? Okay. Yay! Okay. All right. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So I did that crazy live stream that was 8 hours. I thought I was going to die. And at the time I was like, I don't think I'm ever doing that again just because it's I'm kind of one of those people that I'm extremely introverted, and I am capable of little like bursts of enthusiasm, and then I need to like sort of shrivel back down into like a little prune and then wait until I am re-energized. So doing like an 8-hour stretch was like a lot, but I feel like 3 hours is reasonable. And it's, for one, you should just know right out the gate, we are not making the Mona Lisa today. This is not, this is kind of a fun, silly little thing that if you want, you can do and put up in your house, and it will look cool and spooky. But this is not like a showpiece. This is not like, it's an accent more than a centerpiece. I'll say that. So, and I feel like if you add up enough of these little touches in your house, you get a whole effect overall, which is sort of what you want. Um, and so I would say that owl TV cupboard of mine, that's like a centerpiece. And then this is just like a salt and pepper shaker on the table, if that makes sense. Let's see. The delicious dish on National Public Radio. That's what I was talking about, I think. Where they've got Alec Baldwin looking super attractive and talking about something like his last name is Shweti, I think, in that. And I just like how they're very gently talking into the microphone. And it's like very soothing to listen to. Let's see. Da, da, da. I'm trying to think. So, like I said, this is a little bit impromptu. I just felt like, you know, you guys are, sticking with me through this thing, which is so incredible of you to do. And I just feel like if there's something I can do that makes your time at home a little more enjoyable, then I want to do that. And like, it took, I don't know, it's so funny. I think it took about 3 hours to set all of this up because all of my lights and all of my everything were in the other room. Um, but I don't know. It just seems like something fun that we can do together. So I'm trying to think, what should I cover next? Let me have a little bit of my coffee sort of drink, whatever this is. Okay. So what am I going to be doing? So I sketched this out and I provided it. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know how fancy this is today, we have this ability. So there's a camera literally screwed into the ceiling and it's pointing down here. And so we can craft together. You can see what I'm doing close up. And let's see. Okay. So I see a question. Did you buy a house? Let's talk about that for a second before we get into this fun little arts and crafts. So I've talked about this so much that I am selling this house totally furnished and moving back east. And so my plan has been, and by the way, I've been planning to do this during a spring for maybe like 3 years. And this is the first spring that it was absolutely going to happen. Nothing was going to stop it. And then a global pandemic occurred. And so now my plan for selling and moving has been put on a very miniature hold of maybe like a couple months. I mean, it's really like anybody's guess. I don't know what is going to happen with this, but I think almost everyone's lives have been put on a little bit of a hold. And so I don't know. There are definitely worse places to be shacked up during something like this. So I think I'm just going to make lemonade with the lemons that I have and continue working on this house. If you watched the home tour episode of this house, if you look on when it shows the exterior of the house, there's this railing that goes, there's bunches of decks on this house everywhere with these like slat railings. And I probably shouldn't talk about this before I do it, but I'm just going to do it. He doesn't want me to do it. But if I have an idea and I don't do it, nothing is complete. So if you Google a Chippendale railing, it's this really intricate, beautiful woodwork that makes the railing of a fence, rail, I don't know. And so anyway, um, I have I've kind of seen it here and there in pictures once in a while, and I'm like, I didn't know what it was. Um, I think it's called chinoiserie Chippendale or something like that, which is a word I have no idea if I'm pronouncing correctly, but it is so beautiful and incredible. So I'm trying to think. Um, that is my plan. Because if we're going to be stuck here like a few more months, I'm just like, well, it's going to get sunny and it's going to get green and really pretty. And I'm going to want to do something outside. And I was planning on being moved by then, but I'll just make the house even cooler when I do put it up. So that's my current plan. Let me see if there's any comments or questions. Someone says, I know what you were talking about, and it's going to be gorgeous. Yeah, if you Googled Chippendale railing or Chippendale fence, oh my gosh, it's so spectacular looking. And I feel like once you do the math on it, it shouldn't be that difficult. And I've got like a nail gun, so I think it'll be fun. Will you be doing any shoe or hat making? So I have a ton of projects that I have plans for and that I'm going to do, but I would really like to get out of this house before I get into that stuff. But again, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So we'll see. But ultimately, yes. Ultimately, if this goes long enough, I imagine that I will do everything you can think of. I would like to get into stained glass. I would like to get into glass blowing and doing all sorts of weird stuff like that. I'm going to make my own coffin, which I've talked about, which, in these times maybe I might want to ramp up my plans for that. So I don't know. We're going to see. It's one of those things. Creativity for me is just like, it's like a pond, and every time I stare at it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more time I spend thinking of ideas, the more ideas come. So I don't know. And the truth is, and I've mentioned this before, your guys' support on here is really like what makes all of this possible for me to be able to expand all of these different sort of skills. So thank you. Let's see. Have you been keeping up with saving the Little Big House on YouTube? I haven't. I don't know. Let's see. There's Jerry Landers, that's Jeri Landers, and Hopalong Hollow. If you're feeling bummed or depressed, go look up her videos on YouTube, and you will just feel like everything is going to be okay. I just recently stumbled upon her videos. I'd never known about her before. And I watched one and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful and happy. And so if you need like a little bit of eye bleach from like everything that you're seeing everywhere, just go Google that and you will feel happy again. What was the name? Jerry Landers, Jeri. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. I think. A vintage dress tutorial would be awesome. So I totally want to do that. I have plans. I actually bought all of the supplies to make a dress form, and that was going to be an episode I was doing in January. And then I experimented with a few things and realized I was on the wrong track. I needed to be able to do something that I could easily show you how to do yourself, because if I'm able to do it and not able to give you usable tips for you to do it, it's not really a useful tutorial. So I'm still experimenting with that, and I want to do that tutorial before I get into a dressmaking tutorial, just because I feel like having a dress form of yourself is, I've actually never had one. I've just like literally gone naked over and over and like put on like the scraps of what I'm making. And I don't think that's very like a camera friendly method of showing dressmaking. So I just think I really want to get that dress form made before I move on to that step. So within this year, that's happening for sure. Um, have you ever made a doll's house, or do you own one? I prefer to just make the actual house look like a doll's house. I just think I don't know, that's for me everyone like has like a different um there is just a massive community of people that love miniature art, and because it is a fascinating thing when you see people who do it well. Darcy Prevost is somebody I'm friends with who does really like insanely cool stuff like that. Um, but for me personally, like I just generally, I think I enjoy working on things on a larger scale. So yeah, let's see. I'm just trying to think before I get going on this. Oh, one thing I should chat about before we delve into this is the contest that I have up right now on Patreon. I'm going to keep that going for just a couple more days because I I'm trying to read all of them, and it's an emotional contest. It's about grieving and sadness, and so trying to read all of them is upsetting. But like beautiful at the same time, but I need to space it out a little bit, but I have not had a chance to actually genuinely read through each one, each submission and give it like consideration. So I want to actually be able to do that before instead of just like throwing a dart at a wall. So I hope you guys don't mind waiting just like a little bit on that one. Um, let's see. I think we should begin. I think we're ready. Okay. So, and if at any point I do something weird and like you can't see me or hear me, like just start shouting at me on here. Let me have another drink too before I begin. This is the same antique cup I was using in the last live stream, just that I did 2 weeks ago. And somebody said something like, "Aren't you worried about using an antique?" And I genuinely wasn't. And then I watched a YouTube video by Pinset Tailoring, who I follow on Instagram. And he's this, beautiful guy that like dresses up in like clothes from the 1700s on a daily basis. And he just started a YouTube channel, and he was drinking out of like an old fashioned thing. And I think I'm not entirely sure, but it looked like the handle just like snapped and and drink or tea went everywhere. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a two-hand kind of thing, and I'm not going to rely on this dainty little thing anymore. Because if that broke right now and it went all over this little weird thing, who knows what would happen? We'd probably end up with like a weird science situation, and some digital person would come out of the the thing. Okay. So this is my plan for this. I will show you what I got. I have these frames. I actually have two. And if I have time, I'm going to do two. Let's see. I will switch it to this. So I'll show you what I'm doing. So I printed two sort of, what do you call that? When you flip an image horizontal, whatever. It's a pair basically of these creepy ravens. And I have two identical frames of this. And so I basically want to create an area in the living room where it's like there's like a mirror image basically on each. So let me read the couple comments just so I'm following on what's going on. Somebody was talking about Pinset Tailoring and saying, I love him. And what is the point? of having nice things if you're not going to use them. And that's honestly like my philosophy on things. Like, if it's the Mona Lisa, maybe don't use it as a coaster. But if it's your fancy china, I just feel like, that stuff is here for using and you should use it. So, and if it can be mended, if it's broken, like it's all the better. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really, we have a set of silver and it's like silver plate. So, I mean, like it's not like multiple thousands of dollars silver, but it was passed on from my grandmother to my mother to me. And I actually use it just because that's the point of using it. And I'm not going to have any little ones, so I'm going to be giving it to I think my niece when she's older. So I just kind of feel like I don't know, if it's old and it's pretty and you can use it without destroying it, I say use it. Okay. So let me think, what am I going to do here? Like I mentioned, I'm doing this like really off the cuff. So I have like a general idea of what I'm doing. This is not going to be very complicated either. You should know that. And which is why I drew this in advance, because I was like, you can go bonkers with something like this and spend days doing it, or you can just do quickly like a little bit of something. So that's what we're doing. Nothing crazy. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is, now that I have my image right here, I have my frame right here. Let's see. This is kind of a little bit wonky to do. I want to find the placement that I want for this. And it's kind of funny because we're actually going to be doing a framing episode next month that is tied into that contest that I'm doing, but that is going to be, so like I said, today is going to be simple, and that episode is going to be super complicated and really cool and interesting. But this is just to make something fun to hang in like your bedroom or your hallway or wherever. So you want to find, let me put this here. You kind of want to find the place you want that to sit in the picture. And I feel like I'm liking the way that looks. Let me get this lined up. This takes some doing too, by the way, just so you know, if you want it to be right. And I like that. So I'm going to take a pencil and very lightly, you don't want this mark to be too intense. You're going to just gently go around that. Nothing crazy. Okay, I kind of did that too lightly. Let's figure that out again. Oh, and if I put my big head in the frame, I'm sorry. Is this pencil even sharpened? I should check that. Okay, so I like that. Ah! Okay, that's better. So I'm going to do that with that one and with this one. And I printed out extras just in case I mess anything up. All right, so we've got those. Oh my gosh. So this is what a harebrain I am. I wasn't even paying attention that I was doing two. We're going in the... This is why you never want to trust me with your life or something like that, because if I was like a surgeon or something like that, I'd probably end up sewing an appendage to the wrong place. Let's try that again. I'm liking how that's looking. Okay. That is feeling right to me, I think. Let's see. Let me check the comments really quickly. We need to invest in a cordless mic. I have a cordless mic, but I don't think I have it set up for this. And I should have done that. I could have done that. As a rule, surgeons don't sew appendages to anything. That is kind of the funny thing about having so many people see you sort of making a fool of yourself, because there's always somebody there who's willing to point out something that you've done goofy. I wrote on my supply list Mod Podge, and it's Mod Podge, but I don't know why, and I've known this for actually quite some time. I can't get this right. Like, do you ever misspell one specific word wrong like every time? Well, I have probably like 2 words that I do that with consistently. For some reason, I know it's wrong, but I'll say it wrong just because my brain just doesn't work that way. So technically this is Mod Podge, but I'm going to continue calling it Mod Podge probably until the day I die. I don't know why. Let's see. Okay, so now that I've got this kind of looking the way I want to look, I want to set this aside and go back over here. And what do I want to do? I want to take extra paper, which I have right here. And I should have told you to have extra paper, but you know, it's extra paper. You can grab 8.5 by 11, or whatever size is going to work for you. And I should say this is not a critical step. This is just something I'm kind of winging it. And it's like, I have sort of an idea for what I want to do right now, but we're going to see how it works out. Okay. So I'm going to take the backing for the frame and go like this. And then let's try to find, this is going to be a little bit of guesswork. That's totally off. How am I going to do that? Because kind of what I want to do, while I've got like a mess up here, I'll show you what I'm thinking. I want to have like a cool little like whatever. That's not what I'm going to do, but that is kind of, how do I want to get that shape? You know what? I'm overcomplicating this. Let's go like this. I'm going to take this shape. I'm going to lay this down. So we've got that. I'm going to take some scissors. And we're going to cut that shape out as well as we can. The nice thing about making episodes and being able to edit them is you're able to edit out all of the little goofs and mess ups, and sort of like while you're figuring things out, you kind of get rid of all of that stuff. Okay. So now we have that, and that shape should line up exactly over that picture, which it does. Okay. what exactly is our finished project? So our finished project is literally just a little thing that you're going to have hanging up on your wall. It's not, like I said, it's not the Mona Lisa. It's just like a fun little thing that you can have around the house. And also, if you're not a fan of like this silhouette, um, you could really just pick anything. If you want to find a silhouette of a cat, or I toyed with a bunch of different ideas, like butterflies, whatever you feel like would suit your house well. Silhouette art was kind of popular in like the Victorian era, and that's sort of like the theme that I have going on in my living room. And so I'm basically creating something that wouldn't have existed back then, most likely. But it's kind of like a spooky take on that kind of art. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to read some comments. Will you be republishing your cookbook in the future? Let's talk about that a little bit. But first, hold on. So you want to take this, make sure you get it lined up, because you do want this to be right. So you fold it in half, whatever, make sure it's even. And then you're going to fold it in half again so that you have a little bit of a shape. Okay, let me move the book out of the way so we're not confusing the image that you're seeing. So essentially what you have is that shape folded, and now you have even proportions for each of these. And I'm going to, let's see, I looked up like antique photos on, what did I do? I looked them up on the internet because they used to have like matting that went around them, and it was really beautiful and interesting. And let's see if I can, I don't know if this will show up, but I don't know if that will. Will it focus on that? I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, I'm using this as a reference for when I do this. Okay. So it looks like it goes. Okay. So you basically just want to do this in one corner, and you can make a darker line as you go along. And I'm done with this. I don't need this now. Oh. And I think, let's see, we have a very furry little visitor who has shown up. Let's see. Come here, Poof. I don't want you on the computer. Oh, let's see Poof for a second. Hello, Poof. What are you doing? I mentioned in the last live stream that he has chosen Bisco as his person. And that is, he has very little use for me, sadly. Let's see. No, we don't want you on my drink. Let's see. Poof, you're not helping. Okay, hold on. Ugh. Let's see if, do you want to do like show everyone how pretty you are? I don't think you do. All right. Okay, you go off and do some things. I'm going to continue, but hopefully you don't, let's see. He likes to, you go down. I've mentioned before, I've never had a cat that shed before. And so this is my first kitty that like hairs everywhere. And so I find myself like going, what is that? And like my whole life, like we just never had cats that like had that much hair, and it goes all over the place. Okay, let's see. So let me continue doing this because otherwise we are just going to be doing this for all time. It's basically, it's a fairly simple little shape. Let me show this. And I think if I hold it up here, it should focus, but it doesn't seem to be. Let's see. Well, that was on autofocus, but now it is not. So let's okay. So now that you have that going on, you can take your piece of paper, make sure all of your edges are coming together nicely. And you can take, now you could use scissors to cut this out. I'm going to use an X-Acto blade. Because the paper is folded, it's going to take a couple passes doing this method. I just feel like you get more precision with a blade like this. Okay. And so now you have that really pretty looking little shape, and it was not too complicated to do. And then you just throw your scraps on the floor where they belong. And then, now we're going to find out if this is actually like a good silhouette for this, because it might infringe on the wing of my little thing, and it does, but this is the other nice thing, is technically I can erase that line. We have not done anything that is not mendable. Again, this would be a step that I would just, omit from a finished edited video. Oh, and if you want to post your finished piece of art, I would love to see it. So I think Creating with Christine is the hashtag that we're using on Instagram. Okay. So now that I can see that, I don't think it will show up on camera, but I can kind of see where that bird sits in here. And I think that's going to be my point of reference for where I'm going to set this up. So I don't want that silhouette to. Okay. I'm going to use this holding down each little piece. You want to make sure your piece of paper doesn't move away from you while you're doing this. Okay, I'm actually really liking that. Okay, yay. This is always kind of, it's a little unpredictable. You don't really know like how things are going to work out. But I'm feeling pretty good about this. So I will chat with you while I darken this up a little bit. So I saw a question asking about a reprint of the book. And so again, this is sort of dicey chatting about before I have like solid answers. But I have been in touch with my publisher about potentially having a very small, like me personally paying for like a very small batch of the books to be reprinted so that I would at least have some to give away. And so what I think, because I'm not actually like set up to like sell books and do things like that, I think what I'm going to try to do, if they will let me, again, who knows if this is going to work out, I still have to hear back from them, but I may be able to redesign some of it and add in a few new recipes and have a small batch printed. And if that does all work out, if that is something that I'm able to do, I would probably be giving that as like the gift for the $40 tier this year for, but again, that's like, I don't know if that's going to work out. We'll see. But if it did, it would be a very special limited edition and I would do some modernizing to it. And obviously it would be like a signed gift. So that's my current plan with it. I wish, the publisher kind of stopped doing books, I think, in general. So I don't think she's really doing any more books of any titles. So it's just going to be one of those, we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here. And you just want to darken up that. All right. Okay. So that's kind of looking like something. And now what I'm going to do is lay that frame back over this so I can kind of get a sense of where that is falling and make sure it looks good and that I'm happy with it. Hold that down. Okay. Erase a little bit of a mess up right there. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. And now I have a sense. Okay. So I'm going to do this on this other picture as well, just so I can. I find if you are doing duplicates of anything, if you do them both at the same time, then you're going to get like an identical result on both of them, as opposed to trying to do one and then at a later time trying to do another, where you might be like mixing a different color of paint or something like that. So let's see. Okay, so I'm going to erase my little pencil mark that I had from earlier on this one. Someone said I took a quarantine nap and I missed so much. It's kind of funny. I work from home doing this type of thing. And I don't technically leave the house a ton anyway. So this has not changed. I'm always working. I'm constantly doing something nonstop. So this has not horrendously yet disrupted my like daily life, except stress, obviously, looking at what's going on. But whatchamacallit. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is I'm a huge homebody, and I don't know, I still am. Although I did want to go to an antique store, I think just a couple days ago, and then I was like, nope, I can't do that. Okay, so I'm going to try to place this in the same spot, which shouldn't be too tricky, I don't think. Okay. I promise this is going to start getting exciting here in a minute. I toyed with the idea of having music playing, because that was one of the little notes that I saw from the last like craft along live stream, was people wanting like background music or something like that. And so I was chatting and I was like, well, I could play records on the gramophone, but then I'd be constantly changing the records. And then I was like, well, I could ask, I'm not going to even say the name, the device in the house that can automatically play music. But then if I started doing that on camera, it would set off everybody else's that had that in their house. So instead, what I would suggest is I will sit in utter silence. And if you put on some background music, it'll sort of make, instead of just, I don't know, subjecting you to whatever it is that I could come up with. Let's see. I know, if I could play the gramophone, I have a whole stack of records that are just so incredibly good, but it would involve me like winding the gramophone with every song, changing the needle with every song, and like you would just see a lot of my backside just like fiddling with that corner. I think someone's talking about like you can rewind the live stream if you're not totally caught up. And again, like I don't think we're doing rocket scientry, so this is not terribly complicated. Okay, I'm feeling like that's good enough. Okay. I'm gonna lay this right over here. And so what I'm going to do now is, now that I have these shapes, I'm actually going to, before I start cutting, because once you start cutting, then it's a done deal. I know that there's an outline over this. So that's the interior. Everything you see here is what you're actually going to see in the finished image. And now if you look at the frame, or almost any frame you have, you've got about, it looks like ½ an inch or so right there distance. So you want to cut outside. You want to draw a little line outside of this. And then this is kind of your safety line. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just about roughly that amount. And we're going to actually be cutting out on that line that we're drawing right now. I'm going to do that with both of them. And we're going to be painting this black, this like inner kind of little fancy stuff that we did. Just in case you're already way ahead of me and you want to move on to your next step. Actually, you know what? Don't do that. We're going to be adhering it to a board before we do that. Okay. Let's see. So that is kind of coming along now. All right. So now that we have that all kind of dealt with, we're going to just take some scissors and cut out on, just in case, that outer, the furthest border that we have. This is kind of like arts and crafts, like in preschool or something, but like spooky arts and crafts, which I don't think I never had, which I would have loved. All right, there's one down. So I mentioned that I had extra copies printed in case I mess up. But at this point, I really don't want to mess up, because I'm enough steps down the road that that would be obnoxious. I think it was Disneyland who used to do those like silhouettes of like little kids. And this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. They may still do it. I don't know. Okay, so we've got that. Now, I said have cardboard or a project board. I'm going to use project board just because it's sitting right here and it's readily available. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to actually, this will be easier. If I take the backing to the frame and lay that down, because that will be the same size that I need. And I want 2 of these. And the reason we're doing a cardboard backing, which we're actually going to glue this onto, is because we're going to be doing a lot of like painting onto this, and you don't want it to be, I'm trying to think, you don't want to be applying too much pressure just to the thin paper. And if you adhere it to something like this, you're going to have a little bit more strength. Aside, set these guys aside. And I'm going to very roughly get the basic shape out. And please be careful and don't cut yourself. I tend to be very haphazard when working with blades and knives and things like that. And one of these days, I'm just going to be doing it and like a finger is going to pop right off. And I'll be looking at it thinking, I should have been more careful. So when cutting with project board, don't try to cut all the way through it the first time. Just cut a little bit, and then you can use that as a guide the next time you pass along it. Let's see, this is actually going to be easier if I cut this in half and work on them one at a time. And you know what? I'm realizing the blade on my thing is done. I'm going to pop it out, dispose of it right there, grab another one. Oh my gosh, that's going so much better. It is incredible how much extra work a dull blade can make for you. This part is a little tedious, but I don't know. Crafting isn't really an extremely chatty sort of project. Well, at least this kind isn't, because you're sort of intently focusing on that line, and I tend to get kind of quiet when I'm doing that. Almost, not quite. There we go. All right. Okay, so now I've got these two, and I've got these two little images that are going to go pop in right on there. Perfect. How do I like that? And at this point, you can kind of get a sense of like how that's going to sit in a frame. And I like it. See, I'm trying to get a gander of it myself. And I think the shape I cut out, it should have slipped right into the frame, and these are going to, I can already tell. So maybe I need to trim those the edges down just a touch on that. Yep. The last thing you really want to do is get really far along and then feel like you have to do something like this. That's kind of good. Make sure it's going to fit before you're dealing with something that's like special and got all of its detail on it. Because once it's painted, you don't really want to be like putting a ton of pressure. Okay, let's see, how's that looking? Almost. Let's see. I keep thinking I'm there, but not quite. Getting there, slowly but surely. is actually getting kind of comical. Okay, finally. The last thing you want is, you know, you get really far and then you realize you have to deal with something like this. And I'm just kind of trying to save us that headache. Okay, well, that one did not require as much manipulating. Okay. All right, so put my blade down, set my frames all the way. Okay. Whew. Let's see. So now we're going to have both of these guys. Both of these guys. Perfect. Okay. Let's see. All right. So now I'm going to take a little bowl, a little Mod Podge, and pour it in there. So this is something you want to do kind of like sparingly. You truthfully, you could use like a spray-on adhesive or something like that to affix this, but I don't know. It just seemed like I was trying to give like a supply list of things you'd most likely have at home. And if really almost any kind of adhesive or glue is going to do it. I'm trying to think, Elmer's glue, you might want to water it down, something like that. But Mod Podge is kind of just the right Mod Podge. I'm going to figure that out one day. So you just want to keep this thin. You don't want a super thick coat at all. You want just enough. You don't want pools of it, basically. Just enough to sort of create a very tacky surface. And the reason for this is twofold. For one, if you have like pools of glue on here, and you try to put the paper on it, it might actually bleed through in sections, and you don't want that. And then the other reason is it will dry a whole lot faster if you have it just thinly applied. So then you take this and just get that on there. You kind of want to make sure you don't have any air bubbles if you can avoid it. And then you want to put that down. And then, I should have thought of this earlier, maybe like a book. I haven't actually read this book yet, so I probably shouldn't do that with that one. Let's see what other. Ooh, I have a computer. It's like a little, it's not a very tidy looking computer, but it should flatten it. Because you kind of want it to adhere everywhere. Oh. Let me just see. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing with the other one. Super thin little All right. Okay. Let's see. Can we hear me again? And can we see me again? I moved the mic and it actually unplugged the computer and I didn't realize it had done that. So let's see. There we go. Okay. Yay. Okay. I was expecting that to be a much bigger tragedy. Okay. So yes, I'm using the Golden Girls to help me out. And I'm just going to let these sit here for a second. Okay. I'm going to drink something really quick. Okay. So we have a minute while this totally sets up. So why don't we do like a little bit of a Q&A? If you feel like asking a question, throw it in a comment and I'll try to read it and get to it. Oh, I decided like, what was I deciding? I was considering just wearing pajamas and just being like super, super comfortable. But then I was like, let's look a little bit nice. What am I drinking? Just coffee with foamed oat milk. And I used to use some brand Planet Oat as the oat milk. And then they ran out of that at the grocery store, which they seem to be out of everything. And they had Chobani oat milk, and I got it, and I like it so much more. So maybe that's one to check out. Let's see. Still nothing for me. Doesn't work for me. Let's see. Did you go to art school? No, I didn't. I mentioned this in my very first live stream. I'm a high school dropout. So no, I did not go to college or art school or anything like that. It's all completely self-taught. Really just, I've kind of always been a little bit into arts, but not heavily or anything. I want to say I was probably 30 or something when I started like going like, oh, I want to do art or something like that. I'm not even sure. Oh, let me move the mic a little closer to me and hopefully I'll pay attention to like if the computer's getting unplugged. Let's see. How is your house hunt going? It's going terribly. I will tell you. Let's talk about that for a second. I am having such a hard time finding like the right kind of house. And it's just because, I have so many like weird little like, well, I want that and I want that, but I don't know. The truth is, I started a house hunt 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 3. And I found the perfect house. It was just perfect and it wasn't even expensive. It was just the dream house and you guys would have loved it. And just thought it was like the best thing ever, but I just really didn't have the money at the time and I wasn't able to move on it and someone else bought it. And I have never found a house since that has come close to how perfect that house was. So this sounds silly. I actually contacted the realtor, the previous owner, this week and before this whole giant thing blew up, and was just like, it was in New York State. It was so incredible. And I reached out to her and I was like, I know this is just an impossibility, but if the person who bought that house would be willing to sell it for well over what they bought it for, at this point, I'd be happy to make that happen just because I've never seen one come along that was so spectacular. And if you guys want to look up the house that I'm talking about, you can. I don't think there's any harm in doing that. Um, it's the address is 108 South Portage Road in Westfield, New York. So I'll say that again in case anybody was going to type that in. 108 South Portage Road, Westfield, New York. And if you go on to the Zillow listing, it's so beautiful. It was so perfect. It just had nothing was really far gone with it. It was just, it was on like 2 acres, I think. And it was quiet, which was a big thing. And the entire attic was a wood shop. So the person who was selling it, her father was the owner. And her dad was like a woodsmith, I don't know, woodworker. What do you call that? There's a word for it, a carpenter. Anyway, so, and there was like, oh my God, it just would have been so good. I have never found one that I've liked as much. And I have looked at so many, and you know, when you find like that perfect one, it's so hard to find something that tops it. And like, I don't know. I don't want to spend $1 million on a house. I don't. I just think I don't mind spending that much over a period of time. But I don't know, it's very hard to find like a spooky looking house that is not too far gone because my gosh, I have come across several that are so far gone but so beautiful that like it would be really realistically years before I could get them into a shape that I could practically like film in, and I don't think that would be good for what we're doing. So I am trying to find something. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I don't even want it to be. But I don't know. You know, that house is beautiful. So you guys have looked it up. Oh my gosh, it is. It's perfect. It was the perfect house, and they weren't even asking a ton for it. And you know, that's obviously when your business, your profession is art. It's dicey. It's a very hard profession to be financially successful with, and as far as longevity goes, it's really up in the air. It's not. This is not a career like I'm trying to think where like a librarian or something where you go into it and you know you're going to be having a steady income for a long duration of time. Um, so I was at the moment when I was looking at that house, I did not know if this career was going to be successful enough to support that house. And so I hesitated and I lost it. But you know, what are you going to do? I'm a librarian. I'm jealous. I don't know why. That's a very like sexy profession. I don't know why I think that. I feel like, I don't know. I'm not going to get too into it on here, but I like that profession. Let's see. Have you ever lived in a haunted house, or would you? I'm my parents. I grew up in like a big creepy Victorian house that was built in the 1800s, and so I don't know if any place is haunted. I'm pretty sure that place is. And so I have no qualms with a haunted house or anything like that. Let's see. It's a very new profession. No one knows how it will turn out. That's that's really how I feel. Like so for that reason, I don't want to buy $1 million house and then have, you know, who knows what could happen, especially with the way the world is. Like you don't want to assume you're going to keep making money forever. So really what you want to do if you want to be smart is buy something you can realistically pay off in a short period of time, and secure yourself as much as you can, or like pad yourself as much as you can, and then with the assumption that it's all going to go away and that you're going to have something to fall back on, as opposed to doing, you know, I don't know, as like so many like famous people I think from the 90s do, where you're like buying gold toilets and doing crazy things, assuming it's going to just keep coming forever. So, yeah, I try to be smart about it, but I don't know. Every once in a while, like, who knows? Let's see. Come to Canada. I would love to go to Canada, but I would be apprehensive about living there permanently because it's kind of chilly, isn't it? I could be wrong about that. I've never been. Um, but I do like things to be warm. Let's see. So I see a few comments of people not seeing the screen being back. So I'm wondering maybe if you like refreshed the stream, it might pop back up, I hope. Ah. What do you look for inspiration every day? That's a really good question. Inspiration every day. Um I know it's really if you get okay. This is she just farted. This dog just farted. Gertie, Gertie, you sweet little angel. She's really gross. That kind of distracted me. I was like, what? Inspiration. This is where I look for inspiration. Um, oh, she's so gross. She does this thing where she likes to, I'll be laying in bed and she wants to snuggle and she gets really close up to your head. And you're just laying there and everything's wonderful and all of a sudden you were just hit with a wall of total grossness. Okay. Ah. Let's see. What inspires me every day? Not that. If you want that answer. I'm trying to think. I try to watch things that bring me happiness. I love the movie Steel Magnolias. If you are ever down, there's obviously some sadness in that movie, but it's a really good movie to watch to like make the world feel pretty. Um, so I love that one. I like I said, Jerry Landers, Hop Along Hollow. If you just need something to feel like a little more cheerful, that's a really good YouTube, I think. Um, so yeah, I don't know. You just kind of you find I look for it in movies and entertainment. That's kind of where I find inspiration and things to get excited about. So, and I'm trying to think if the weather was nicer. It's so yucky outside right now. This is that kind of really weird time of year where it wants to be spring and it still wants to be winter. So it snowed a whole bunch the last 2 days. And then it was too warm for it to stick around. So now there's just like snow falling off all of the trees, and you just hear these loud like clumps and plops outside, and it's just a yucky mess outside. You don't even want to step out there. But if I lived in like Savannah, Georgia right now, oh my gosh, I would be packing a picnic and going to some remote area where there were no people and just like sitting. I would bring her along with me, and maybe my cameraman. And it would just be like nice to lay in the grass and in the sun again. But maybe one day. Do you ever exercise? This is a really funny question. Um, no is the answer. I don't in the traditional sense. The idea of going to a gym and having strangers watch me jiggle sounds terrible. So I don't go to the gym and I don't go running or anything like that. But I am constantly like active around the house, running up there, running down there, working on stuff, leaning over things, picking heavy things up. So I think if you were to collectively put all of those efforts together, it would resemble exercise in some sense. So I don't spend a massive amount of time sitting. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Is that exercise? I think it kind of is. Let's see. Where is your ideal living location? Of everywhere I have personally seen, I really like North Carolina. I think it's so just magical there as far as, what I've personally witnessed. So North Carolina is the prettiest. I really have a deep fascination and love for Savannah, but I don't know how I would deal with the humidity that they get like year round, or like I don't know if it's year round, but my hair tends to get very big around humidity, and I think that would be a hard look to deal with every day. Let's see. That totally counts as exercise. Okay, good. I feel pretty good about that. Um, All right. Let's see how these are looking. Ah, perfect. That's feeling pretty good. Okay, let me scooch that out of the way. Let's see. Ah, that one's bubbly. Crackers. Well, I want it to look old, so, and this is a live stream, so like, this is kind of one of those, like, if it all works out, great, and if it doesn't, what are you gonna do? So, so one of them's perfect, and one of them, let me see if you can see, I've got air bubbles in one. So the Golden Girls, as usual, pulled through. And then my MacBook did kind of a questionable job. So let's see. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to take some black paint. You can use acrylic paint. You can use really almost any. Oil paint is going to take too long to dry for this, but if you're not in a hurry and you want to do, and all you have is oil paint on hand, you can do that and then let this sit until it dries and then come back in to do the other things. So let's see. So I'm going to put some paints. And then this is I don't know, this is very fun for me. I like this part. So I'm just going to take this, and then you have that line there. So all you have to do is follow it. I don't know how strong this mic is, but you might. Oh, I can't hear you all at once at all now, and that is because I'm not talking. Can you hear me now? The nice thing about the paint that I'm using here is it dries really quickly. So it's actually already almost dry as I'm going around. You can't stop talking. I can't. Well, I can't talk and try to paint in the lines. So I will try to talk. Let's see. While I do this, but I fear that it is going to cause me to mess something up. My stomach is grumbling really loud. Does that count as talking? Okay. That's kind of coming together. I don't know how yours is looking, but I'm liking this. And also, if you mess up at some point here, you can take a little white paint and correct anything. We're going to be aging the whole thing, so I mean, like, it really doesn't need to look completely perfect. I could sing. That would, I'm sure, make all of you turn your volume down. Okay. So I'm liking how that came out. I feel like that came out pretty neat. Let's see. I feel like I'm liking that. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. And I'm going to do my second one while we let it dry, just so I'm active. What is your favorite past Halloween costume? My mom dressed me as like a pumpkin one year, and I don't know why. I really enjoyed that costume. It was just like this big poofy like sack with green tights and like I don't know. I thought it was a fun Halloween costume. Okay. Maybe that's a good thing. You guys ask a question and I will try to answer it while I do this. I'm very nutty with like wanting to make sure it looks perfect. So let's see. Will you ever collaborate with a store to sell items that you create? I would absolutely love to do that. I haven't really been approached by any retailer that like I recognize. So should that happen, I would love to. Let's see. Favorite black and white movie? This is very easy. The Ghost and Mrs. Muir with Rex Harrison and Gene Tierney. It's just incredible. So if you want to see a really good movie, George Sanders is also in it. It's just amazing. I love that one. I'm trying to think what are I really love Sorry Wrong Number with Barbara. No, 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 no. What is it? Barbara Stanwyck. It's so ridiculous and dramatic. This woman is infirm and at home in this really like opulent apartment, and she picks up the phone and she hears that like a murder is being plotted and they can't hear her and they don't know that she's overheard it. And she tries calling the police to tell them, and they're like, there's a lot of murders that happen in this city. And she's like, no, officer, you must understand. I can't actually do an accent. Oh, that's something. If any. So sometimes I see remarks of people asking, what can't you do? And sing well is one of them, and do accents is the other. I'm trying to think. The only accent I'm good at is a like I'm sure it's probably a offensive um, Minnesota accent, and it's only because I watch Fargo so much. I'm sure people in Minnesota don't normally speak like that, but I don't know. I was obsessed with that movie Bring It On when I was a teenager. Not Bring It On. Why did I say that? Drop Dead Gorgeous. And it's set in St. Paul, Minnesota. I think so. Okay. Drop Dead Gorgeous is my all-time favorite. Allison Janney in that movie. Oh my gosh, when when Kirsten Dunst says something to her, because she gets around, her character gets around in the movie. And when Kirsten Dunst says something to her about like having kids one day, like she says to Allison Janney, like, when you have kids one day or something like that. And she says, God love you for thinking I still could. That movie is filled with so many gems. It's like, who wrote that movie? It's so good. If you have not seen it, Drop Dead Gorgeous. It's the best movie on planet Earth. I also really love Best in Show. That's one of those. Um, she gets Christmas presents every year. She actually like understands what a present is for some reason. Like if you have a package or a box with ribbons or anything like that, she gets really excited. And if you open it, and she goes bananas. So we got her like a bunch of busy bees from which is like a reference to the movie Best in Show. I'm trying to think of other black and white movies that I'm really in love with. I like Rebecca, but I don't watch it like over and over. I've seen The Ghost of Mrs. Muir like a million times. I have not seen Harvey. My mom loves Harvey, and I haven't seen it. Have you ever or would you ever collaborate with Elvira in a heartbeat? I'm almost certain she doesn't even know who I am, but I would absolutely love that. I think very, very highly of her. Let's see. Have you ever thought of doing a walk through haunted house for Halloween? I don't know how I would do that in a practical way. I have thought about not really the same thing at all. Um, and I actually would really want to do this. So this is probably going to happen at some time. Once I get into my big old spooky house that I'm going to end up with, and it's all beautiful and amazing, I think I'm probably going to do something here on Patreon where I'm able to like have like a contest or something like that, where I'm able to bring several groups, like several couples, and have them over for like a murder mystery weekend or something, where I would be doing all the cooking, and I would have to like do so much preparation to pull something like that off. But oh my gosh, how fun would that be? And like maybe somebody would really get murdered. I don't know. Like we'll have to see. But doesn't that sound fun? I think. Let's see. I want to say this is the only like really tedious, quiet part of this process, and it will be over soon. It's the only like part that really requires like intense focus and precision. The rest is kind of just like easy fun. If I see any more questions here pop up, I will try to answer them. I wish I could buy your house. That's so sweet. I feel like I'm only going to sell it to somebody who wants it fully furnished the way it is. I think I mentioned in the last one that my plan is to actually the plan is constantly evolving. Um, but my plan is to put it on the market for a fairly high price, fully furnished with all of my art and antiques and cool magical things. And now that I'm going to have like, I'm pushing out that move date by a couple months. I'm going to have that Chippendale railing outside. It's going to look so mind-blowingly cool. So I'm going to put it on the market, and if it sells fast, like I'm talking like I'm probably only going to have it on for like 2 weeks. And if it sells in that period of time, then I'll sell it fully furnished. And if it doesn't, then one of two things will happen is I will either have everything pulled out of it, all of the furniture, and sell it at market value, or I'll pull everything out of it. um, most of the stuff, most of the things, and then just keep it here as like a vacation home when I come back to like visit my family and stuff like that. So we'll see how it works out. Do you watch any other YouTube creators? Totally. I've recently got into Hindash makeup tutorials. I just like him. Um, so I like that. What else? Lisa Eldridge is my favorite, like makeup YouTuber. Um, I like those drunk history videos. The Cleopatra one is the best one of all of them. I'm trying to think. I'm on YouTube all the time. I would actually go so far as to say it is my very favorite website just because you can constantly find cool, interesting things to watch, and somebody has made a video of everything. Like, I bet if you wanted to know how to pluck out nose hair, there would be a video for that. Like, anything you can think of, they've got a video for. And it's kind of fun to think that, like, it is something you're documenting for who knows how long. So, like, theoretically, in several centuries in the future, like, it may be something somebody's watching, which you don't think about when you're making something like that. And I think is really, really amazing, because the truth is, if people were making videos 2 centuries ago, we'd be watching them now. Or at least I would. Bernadette Banner. I love her videos. I just started supporting her on Patreon just because I really enjoy like the history she gives and all sorts of other little like bits of information. I'm trying to think. I just love anything like that. Oh, American Heritage did a series where they were like researching like vintage fashion, and it's with Amber Bouchard, something like that. Um, and this other amazing makeup artist that's so beautiful. And I love their videos. And I think there's only like a handful of them, and I don't know if they're going to keep making more. But those are videos that I absolutely love because they're so incredibly informative. I like watching lots of stuff with European people. I don't know why. I think I'm trying to think. This might sound kind of funny, but you know, everyone sees the world through their own like weird perspective. And to me, people in like London and France and all of those places, just really almost just anywhere in the UK, I find I think that the accent, the way they speak is so beautiful. And I love watching videos with people that are speaking that way. It makes me feel like it's the fanciest thing ever. Angela Clayton, I love her too. I actually, she was the first person I became like a patron of here on Patreon. So she's one I absolutely love as well. The Cleopatra one is hilarious. Drunk History Cleopatra. Google that on YouTube and you are in for a treat. I think I really like Aubrey Plaza, and she makes what I would consider the most attractive version of Cleopatra that I've ever seen. I am almost done with this. Okay, this is such. I'm gonna actually let me finish this. I'm not gonna read another comment. Let me finish. I'm almost done, and then I'm gonna respond to the question I just saw. My stomach is going bananas right now, making grumbly, growly noises. But I'm going to wait to eat until I'm done with this because I have a feeling you guys don't want to sit and watch me eat a bowl of Raisin Bran Crunch, which is what I will be eating when this is over. I watched an episode of The Golden Girls where Dorothy was eating bran flakes out of like a wooden bowl. And so I immediately went on eBay and like found like a set of, I don't know, bamboo bowls or something like that. And I started eating bran flakes out of them just because I saw them. Okay, so let me show you what that's looking like. Raisin Bran. Isn't that such like an old lady cereal to want? Like that's my dream. Like I hope I get to be an old lady for a really long time because there are so many fun things I think you get to do. Okay. Okay, those came out super nice. And we're still in the early stages, so okay. Let me switch back over here. I've got my flatulent little sidekick. Hello. Oh, she's a baby. Okay, So let me answer a question that I saw about a makeup tutorial or a makeup question, and I probably read it wrong. So the episode I'm right in the middle of, and I don't want to give anything away as far as showing you like what it is or what exactly I'm doing, but I am transferring modern day makeup, my favorite makeup, into antique containers, and it's going so well. You know how sometimes like I'm trying to think. I always have like a plan for how things are going to go, and I hope they work out. And then sometimes you're like going through them and they're coming out okay. Well, this is coming out so well. I'm so excited about it. And this is going to be a Patreon exclusive video. So the way that I'm doing it is I'm breaking up um this process kind of into two episodes, where the part where I'm actually transferring and making these containers and doing all of this cool stuff is its own episode. And that is going to be just for you guys to see. And that will be coming very soon. I'm still working on it, but before the end of the month. And then as soon as I'm finished with that, which will hopefully be in the next, like, oh, my stomach's going nuts. In the next few days, hopefully, then I'm going to actually film a makeup tutorial of me using all of my very favorite makeups and applying them to my face, and that will be the public YouTube video for the month of March. So that's what I'm working on, and like I said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited with how it's working out so far. And I want to say the hardest part is behind me, and it has to do with eyeshadow. So, and it's the thing that I'm like most proud of and excited about. So again, I'm not going to give away too much, but it's coming within a week, I think. I think there's only like 10 days left in the month. So it will be up. Will there be a Q&A Patreon post in the future? Well, we kind of do. Let's see, a Q&A. That's actually a good idea. If I did a typed Q&A and maybe just like sat and answered the questions, I don't know. Maybe that could be something. Let's see. I'm letting this dry for a second, so it totally sets up. I'm like actually really jazzed with how these are looking. And once they're all like sort of like spookified, they're going to look really good in these frames, I think. Okay, I'm jazzed. Yay! Let's see. The hashtag for this one will be creating with Christine. So hashtag creating with Christine. What genuinely creeps you out? That's a really good question. Not too much now that I'm thinking of it. Let's think. What bothers me? Let's see. I don't know if that's creeping. I'm not sure. What genuinely creeps you out? I like the idea of life continuing after I'm dead. And the idea of it not is upsetting or something. I don't know. Something I feel comfort in the fact of when I die that like the world keeps going, and so like that being threatened is upsetting to me. I don't know. That's a weird response to that question, but I don't tend to. Okay, if I look down at my hand and there is a giant spider crawling, like I'll like go like that and I'll brush it off, but I'll be very careful not to hurt the spider. But not too much creeps me out. I don't think so. There's things I don't like. If I'm watching an animal or if I'm watching a movie and they herd an animal in it, I will almost always turn the movie off. Like you can kill people in movies, I don't mind. But something about like, but don't touch that like little dog or that anything. Like, I can't deal with anything bad happening to animals. So that creeps me out. It doesn't creep me out. It just makes me angry. I'm just like, don't show me that. I don't want to see it. Will you take your gramophone with you when you move? Nope. So I'm going to put this house on the market with all of these beautiful, like the owl TV cupboard, that magical gramophone. So kind of what I've been doing, and I'm going to continue to do, is I really like the idea of putting the house on the market with looking basically like my dream home, like a show-stopping place that looks so incredible, with antique lamps and hand-painted walls and a Chippendale railed fence outside. And I for one, I just want to see what that looks like, totally photographed, everything looking pristine and absolutely perfect. And then I don't know why, I love the idea of someone being able to get it that will enjoy all of that. So that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know. And then obviously, like, I can't give this stuff away for free. So if the house doesn't sell within the first 2 weeks, then I will be taking it all with me to the East Coast. Would you ever do an exhibit or an art gallery? I would. I like the idea of dying and having people do that with my things. I don't know, maybe I think that's probably the only way that's probably going to happen, is and there would be a lot to show. Like, I've done oil paintings, I've done woodcraft. And I like the idea of, like, you kind of don't realize how interesting this moment in history is because you're in it. You don't really stop and think that in the span of 20 years, the changes that have happened in society, in my opinion, are kind of about as big as like the Industrial Revolution and how that changed, just because the internet has changed the world, really. And so this is going to be a moment in history that people in the future do find fascinating, just because it's the beginning of people like me that are able to create art. Like, I would have never stood out in the world before the internet. I'm not a terribly outgoing person, as far as I don't generally like go places to try to show people what I can do. And so I would have just been somebody who did this stuff at my house and nobody would have ever known about it. So I think it's really fascinating that we're living in this moment that later in the future, people will go back and look at what were the things that came from this moment in time. So I don't know. I think that's really interesting. Let's see. Do you have a how-to of how to spookify a bathroom? So I was also going to do a bathroom remodel, which I had a bathroom to remodel here, but I just feel like I was going to do it. And then I realized, if I'm going to do a bathroom episode, I wanted to blow your mind with special fixtures and special everything. So I'm going to save the bathroom episode for the next house I end up in, because this one, there's some modern things in it that I just can't get around. And at the next house, there's going to be multiple bathrooms, and one that I can just absolutely gut and then redo in the most vintage, fun way that you can with, I'm going to find like antique toilets and sinks and tubs and do all sorts of magical, really fun things. So, yeah. Let's see. I think that's dry. That feels dry. So let's get to the fun part, I think. What am I going to do? So now what you want to do is have some water handy. And I have a bottle of water. I'm going to set these off camera so I don't like splatter. This tends to make a little bit of a mess. So I have a stippling brush that I'm going to do this with, but the truth is you could use, if you have any of these like sponge looking, let me show this. These weird little sponge things, you can take them and you can rip the tip off of them and then tear away the corners. And you can do this with, you can do the same thing with a makeup sponge. Really kind of anything. You could do this with paper towels sort of waddled up. I just said waddled up and I think I meant wadded up. So anyway, you can do this. There's a lot of different ways to do this. But I'm going to mix my paints first. And I'm going to use red, yellow, white, and black. And I'm going to make brown with this, kind of like a dingy looking brown. So a little bit of black. Let me show this. You want to be sparing with the red. Red goes a lot farther than yellow will. And you can do a lot of yellow. I'm doing like a bunch of yellow and just a little bit of white. And let's mix this up and see what it starts looking like, because this is a process to get a shade that you're really happy with. And so right now the color I am seeing is gray, and that is not the color I want. So I might, let's see. So I was using airbrush paints, but I think using jumbo acrylic looking things are probably going to help me. Let's see, what's the best art class you've ever taken? I've never taken any, so I don't know. I don't think any. Trial and error, if that's a class, I don't know. I watch a lot of videos, so if you technically think about it, I've watched so many videos and episodes on YouTube that that is a class, really, honestly. So, and I've learned a ton from that. So, can I retract my previous statement? I guess I've taken a lot of art classes on YouTube. Just they're kind of broken up. The class of life. I like that. That's a mean class. So not too much red. This is a real goopy kind of craft paint. And let's wiggle over here. I'm gonna see what this starts looking like. This should begin to give me a color like I want to be seeing. And it's looking better. You don't want it to be too, I'm trying to think. We're trying to make an aged effect. And so there's going to be a few different ways we do this. And if you can believe it, we're actually like not too far away from being finished, because this is kind of going to go pretty quickly. So I want to get that a little bit warmer, a little more red. So the hashtag being used is creating with Christine, and please post to that, because that was the most exciting thing. Let me go back over here. That was the most exciting thing about the December all day live stream is I can't believe how incredible everybody's projects came out. So it was very fun. And I think I even commented on somebody's. I said, hey, you're not supposed to do like a way better job than me. Because a few people did. Okay, let's see. I'm feeling like that's looking nice. You kind of want a color that's, I'm trying to describe it. A decayed corpse. That is technically kind of the color that we're going for. Is something that looks aged and can be watered down. Because that is our next little step. And I'm feeling like, what do I want to test this on? I do want to test it on something. And that's way too... Ooh, I have this. Ooh, that is looking pretty good, actually. You kind of want, we're going to be like thinning this out quite a bit. And so you kind of want a color with a warm, that's just a touch. Let me show this. That's a little too brown. I want a little, well, not brown. It's a little, doesn't have, ooh, I should have shook this up. That's what's going on. I'm not getting the intensity in the yellow that I need. There we go. A little bit more of that. Someone said, I love the community that this has formed. And I'm going to tell you, I feel the exact same way. I have gone my whole life feeling kind of pretty alone, I want to say, in the things that I love and the things that I enjoy. And little bits, more and more, I had felt like I was finding people that I had genuine shared interest in. And with like Instagram and all of that, I really felt like that. And then when Patreon came about, and it almost just felt like a magnet for all of these people that share something so similar to myself. And it does make you feel like, oh, I'm like amongst my people, like people that enjoy things that are dark, but also pastel once in a while. So I don't know. I have like this incredible feeling of, I don't know. I just feel very connected to you guys and the people that are here. It just feels like we are cut from the same cloth, I think is the best way to say it. And I'm fairly certain everyone here likes cats, which right there, I think, is just about all I need to be won over. Okay. How is this looking? Do a little bit of a nugget on that. And there we go. That is the color that I want. Let me see if I can show you this. Somebody said, where are the cats? And I'm going to sorely regret having done this. So I will show you the cats. And there's a very easy way to do that. It would actually be hysterical if this didn't work. Oh, look. It is a little bitty poof. What is going? They absolutely love this toy. They go bananas for it. And a laser pointer. They kind of just go totally. Oh, Gertie is like, I've had enough of this. I feel like they can tell. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, the cameraman has a laser pointer, and I am about to get mauled, I think. Let's see. Poof! He must have been napping because he seems very normally. If you get this thing going, he just goes absolutely bananas, and he goes all over the place. Mr. Poof! What is he doing? Is this the cutest cat you have ever seen? Hello. He likes to have his little, like, not a nose rubbed. Ooh, what is that? Do you want to look at the people? Like I said, he has kind of decided Grant is his person and thrown me by the wayside, which, I lost my little Mr. Biggles and he never would have done that to me. He would have just been with me always. But, I think what I was just telling my mom this morning, I think I might go to like the pound and like adopt like a handful. That's actually what my mom used to do. She would go to the pound and she would just like ask them, like, which are the ones that you are going to be doing something terrible to. And she would literally, when I was a kid, she would come home with like 3 cats at once. I'm not kidding about that. So we had a lot of cats growing up. Poof. What are you doing? So anyway, I was thinking of getting a handful of cats and maybe like they could give me like a third of the love that Mr. Biggles did. And then if I spaced it out, it might be okay. I don't know. So far, all I have is this little cat that is in love with someone else. Werewolf, my little black cat, who she's kind of a teenager and we spend some time together. And then I have Sergeant Fuzzy Balls, which is my little weird cat. And the majority of the time that he gets on you when you start petting him, he starts trying to hump you. So I don't know. I'm living in an imperfect world at the moment. Okay. I grew up with 7 cats running around our house. My parents used a plastic kid pool as That sounds like something my parents would have done had they thought of it. Like, I definitely grew up in a house where I could picture a kiddie pool filled with litter as a litter box. That would have been something my parents would have done for sure. Okay, so now that we're here, let's see what's going to happen. So I want to take a little bit of this paint and I'm going to put it in this bowl. Not too much, like just a little bit. And then I'm going to take water. Just a little bit of water, not too much. You're kind of creating a tint, if that makes sense. And I'm feeling like that looks good. So something you should have on hand that I should have mentioned is a paper towel or a rag or anything like that. Just about anything that's going to be able to blot up any excess that we're about to create. So I'm going to go right here. Let me test this on a little piece of paper just to make sure this is going to yield a result that I'm going to be happy with and not mess up at the 11th hour. So I'm going to blot that around a little bit. See what that's looking like, and I'm going to dabble that up. And I'm liking, that's going to give me that aged paper look, which I'm really jazzed about. So I'm going to set as many things off to the side as I can, so I have like a good working surface. Get everything out of the way that isn't a necessity. And I have a stipple brush. And I'm going to just go bananas and see what happens. Essentially what you're looking for is you don't want anything that looks uniform. You kind of want it to look naturally sort of messed with. And your paper may bubble, because I'm seeing that happening with my paper. And I think ultimately that will just lend itself to an aged look, which I think is just fine. Yeah, my paper is bubbling like crazy, but like I said, we're gonna have this in a frame behind glass, and that's gonna kind of help in making this look old and spooky, I think. Poof! No! I think he likes the sound of the stippling. Oh! Okay. A cat just collapsed off camera. Okay, nice. I am liking how that looks, I think. Perfect. So I'm going to set that aside and do my other one. And it's going to dry a little lighter than you see it. So just keep that in mind. Basically what you want your thing to ultimately end up looking like is just like this weird, like if you went like in the Neverending Story, that movie from the 80s, like he goes to that old creepy bookstore. It's like something you could picture being like on the wall or something like that. Crafting with cats would be a great hashtag. There is no way somebody hasn't already claimed that. It's too good of an idea. Let's see. Make a little bit more of this tint. You're running out of paint. It's making me anxious. I have fixed that. I get like that too, by the way. If I'm watching something like that, I'm like, is it going to stretch far enough? I feel like that with fabric often. I feel like, what's going to happen if you end up with not enough? Okay. So that is our first coat. We are not even close to being done. Okay. Cheap makeup sponges work great. They absolutely do, and they are so easy to get a hold of. So I'm going to put more in here, and I'm going to dilute it less so that it is a little more opaque and not quite as translucent. So again, I should preface, I'm experimenting while I do this, and I'm hoping that it all works out. I feel confident that it most likely will, but hopefully I don't do anything that just totally messes it up. What I want to do is create a gradient where it's darker on the outside and lighter on the inside. And if you look at a lot of things that are aged, that tends to happen. If you feel like you're seeing any marks that are too, I guess what you'd call intentional, you can always just go back in and mess with those a little bit. And you can take your time with this process. It's not really anything that has to look too perfect, and you can kind of go back. I would actually, if I was going to suggest anything, I would do as light of a coat as you possibly can, and then just keep going over. And that way, if you do something you don't like, you most likely haven't done anything too dramatic. I'm liking how that's looking. You feeling? And now you want to just you guys are probably hearing so much tapping. Do you prefer cardstock when making borders of actual matting? Yes. It's hard to cut through. It's I bet if I had like a better knife or something, or a better like blade, it might be a little easier, but I have a hard time cutting through those. But yes, it does look better and it is a little more functional. I just figured we're doing a craft that, you know, most people are stuck at home, and I wanted to like figure out a way to get through it with things that most likely people would have like in their house. And so that was my logic in trying to find a project that you would almost certainly, the average person would have these things in the house. And kind of see how like as you do it, it just gets sort of like spookier and spookier looking. Do you reuse your brushes? So if I can remember to, I clean my brushes and try to reuse them. So like this, like a stippling brush, I'll 100% reuse this. But this, like a chip brush that you get, like in those big packs, I almost always destroy them on the first use. So those tend to just get tossed in the trash. You can kind of just keep going around and looking. And anywhere you see like a light spot that you might want to deepen up, you can sort of go at and add just a little bit more aging. And the darker you end up going around that border, the lighter the center will begin to look, which is kind of what we want. And like, see how aged that's already? It like already looks like the map from the Goonies or something like that. So if you want like a sampling of what my childhood was like, one of the first arts and crafts projects that I ever did was I read the Fear Street Saga by is it R.L. Stein? Is that Fear Street? I think so. The Fear Street Saga, and it's like about these 1800s witches or something like that. And I was so into it and thought it was so incredible that I took a bunch of papers and did something like this. I made my own like creepy spell book, and I like literally did this by myself. Like I didn't really have any friends or anything like that. I just did this up in my bedroom. And then I took it out to like a remote area of my parents' yard and like dug a hole and like buried it and got it all in the ground and like put a bunch of stuff over it. And then I went back and like had like this fantasy of like digging it up, and I dug it up and like pretended like I just found this creepy old spell book buried in the earth. So I don't know. That's the kind of that's how I spent my time as a very small child. Let's see. This is looking so neat. And by the way, like I'm pretty much the only person in my family who likes dark and spooky things. So while I was doing these sorts of activities, my parents were just like, "Huh, all right." Okay, I am liking the way that looks. So let's go back over here and see the difference of like when you start doing like that sort of shading technique compared to one that is not done. So I'm just going to do that with this one. Let's get a little teeny bit more water in here. Oh my gosh. So you said I never knew R.L. Stein created other books other than the Goosebumps. I was so my childhood consisted of I read all of the Goosebumps books. I was so into that. And then when I got a little bit older, I read all of the Fear Street books. And then once I had gotten past that, I graduated to Dean Koontz books. Um, and that was kind of like the trajectory of like how my reading went. And I actually still really love Dean Koontz's work. I've read a lot of Stephen King, and some of it's kind of a little too bleak for me. I like I like a bad ending, like if it sort of feels like it all works together, but sometimes his stuff is like a little nihilistic for me. Like I would say a perfect movie that has a horrible ending but it fits is The Mist. That is one that like I actually wouldn't enjoy the movie if it ended better than it does. And it ends badly in case you Ooh, while we're talking about Stephen King movies, so I heard that Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, was being made, and I was like, I just felt like they're gonna mess this up. I'm not usually too pessimistic about things, But that was one I was just certain was going to be terrible. And I was like, there's no way they can come even remotely close to how incredible The Shining was. And then I went and saw it in the theater, and I was very impressed. I thought it was really just really great, really well done. I think it's unlikely they're going to come out with one that is quite as just mind blowing as The Shining was, but I did feel like Doctor Sleep was a really respectful like addition to the story, and it was amazing. Like, you felt amazing while you were watching it. So it's terrific. If you have not seen it, it is on demand and available for you to watch. I hate to talk about silver linings in a time like this, but all the movie theater movies are now available on Amazon, and I just watched The Hunt last night, and it was hysterical. It was actually really funny. So it's a little bit violent, but I don't think anyone comes out of it looking very good, and I kind of like that. Except Betty Gilpin. She's wonderful in that. I really liked her already, and that movie made me really, really like her. The Most Dangerous Game movie. I don't think I've ever seen it. What did you think of Midsummer? How do you pronounce that? Midsummer? Midsummer? I don't know. I saw it and I don't know, it was good. It wasn't one that like just totally was like the be all end all for me, but it was enjoyable. I did enjoy it. It felt a real bleak at the end in kind of like a unpleasant way for me. That was my memory of it. So, and I saw it a few months ago, so maybe I'm misremembering. Ooh, if you want to see a really good modern day horror movie that does everything it can to come off looking like a spooky old fashioned movie, is House of the Devil, and it's meant to look like a horror movie from the 70s, and it's creepy. Like, it's actually really like a super super well done movie. How are we liking? I'm liking how that looks. That looks really old timey to me. Ah, you said House of the Devil is your favorite horror movie. Don't they do such a good job of like, if you didn't know it was from the 70s, you may not I don't know, it may not jump out at you that it isn't. It's just great is what I'm getting at. You're getting there with this, which I'm super jazzed about. Okay. Let's see. Okay, those are looking how I wanted them to look. And so we're not quite finished yet. So we're going to let these dry a little bit, but let's see. I'm liking that. What do we think of this so far? Because we're going to do one more thing before it's done, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I think once we see this in like a spooky gold frame, it's going to look like something really cool and interesting on the wall. Let's see. I'm one of those people that like has a hard time like waiting to see what something's gonna be. And I have like a convex glass, like a bubble glass, that's gonna go over these when I'm totally ready. But I feel like that looks creepy. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to let those dry for a second before I do my last little fancy touch to it, and then we can set them in their frames. But see, that's kind of it's one of those things that you could realistically pretty much easily do with any sort of silhouette. It could be a picture of a cat or something along those lines. So who knows? Let's see if we can draw the little kitties back over here for a second. I think they may be zonked out. If you have any questions to throw at me, this would be a good moment to do that. I feel like those need to be flanked by beautiful candle sconces. I love that idea. I may actually, in fact, they are good where I'm going to put them in the house. When I'm totally finished and after this is all over and I have them on the wall, I will take a picture of where I'm putting them and post that so you guys can see what it was that I was doing. Okay. I have a rectangle turquoise wood frame. Do you have any ideas on how to make it match better? So personally, if I were you, and it's not like a family heirloom frame, I would just paint that sucker brown and like put some black in the corners of it and just dingy the whole thing up, because frames are one of those things that sometimes the more messed up they look, the better they look, in my opinion. I don't really like in certain rooms it works to have like a really bright, perfect looking frame, but it's also pretty easy to just paint an entire frame, especially if it's got a bunch of details in it. Paint it like a brown and then go over that with like a black and then blot that up, and it will instantly make it look really aged because all the black will seep into like the corners and grooves and things, and it would match really, really good with this. You and Dita Von Teese doing a live stream crafting. I would love that. I'll have to check with her and see. She's a very busy girl, so we'll see if she would be up for that. And like, I think we're all supposed to be under quarantine at the moment, so we'll see how much longer that goes. Hopefully not forever. Maybe that's why antique frames look so nice. I used my beloved departed princess for the silhouette. I love that idea. In fact, if I had thought of that, I might have done that as well. I think that's an amazing idea. Where did I get these frames? I found them on eBay, I think. I think I've had them sort of sitting around the house for a while. I love eBay so much, and now is a really good time to shop on eBay. If you're somebody who enjoys, running to antique stores and doing all that stuff, and you feel a little claustrophobic and you have like a little bit of extra money to fritter away on something fun and frivolous, is eBay is kind of, and the great thing about it is you can spend very little money or a lot of money. It really kind of just depends on what you're looking for, but you can look for, so that's going to be something that I'm getting into in this makeup episode, is all of the little antique makeup pieces I pretty much found on eBay. And they tend not to cost very much, like sometimes just like a few dollars. Let's see. Do you shop on Etsy at all? I do go on Etsy only if I can't find something on eBay, because I usually find everything on eBay, but like if I'm looking for something really specific, I'll check both places. But that's my Etsy story. What is sitting on your eBay watch list? I mean, that's a really good question. Let me tell you. It's probably things that are too expensive. and that I'm just sort of like, I can't spend that. I have eBay on my phone, of course. Let's see. Oh, perfect. On my watch list, it's a set of lamps I will not spend that much money on. Let me see if I can show right here. I don't think it will. I'm going to try to. So it's these two pink hurricane lamps that are twins. And like sometimes people just ask too much for things, but that doesn't mean I can't look at them. Yeah, they're asking, I'll tell you how much they're asking, and it's just like crazy. They're asking $500 for these two lamps and then $162 for shipping. So, you know what? I'm actually going to take that off of my watch list because they're being nuts. And I've been looking at old music boxes, like old antique music boxes, like that play creepy sounding music. So those are things that I'm looking at, but those tend to be so expensive. And I guess it makes sense why. I mean, it's art that went into making them, and the fact that they're still around and functioning is pretty impressive. Where do you get fashion inspiration? I honestly, Instagram Explore. It kind of like your Instagram Explore page is filled with things that it's geared towards what you like. So it must somehow calibrate or figure out what you want to see. So most of mine are vintage pictures of fashion and clothing and art and things like that. And so every time I go there, it sort of repopulates with really cool, interesting things that I haven't seen before. And I love looking, or cats. Yeah, I've got that too. So let me see, because it'll tell you everything that I like looking at. If you just go, let's go here. So I've got, what does it do? Let me go here. In my Instagram Explorer, I've got gentlemen prefer blondes, old art paintings, Lana Del Rey. I really like Lana Del Rey. And all sorts of things like that. A lot of Sharon Tate. At some point, I must have been looking at a lot of Sharon Tate stuff. And so they keep showing that. And Helter Skelter is like the book that I've read so many times. So I don't know. I see a lot of those. So it just basically fills it up with the things that you have clicked on enough. Let's see. How do you know which seller is safe on eBay to buy from? I am iffy about purchasing on eBay. I've been buying stuff on eBay for years and maybe only had one or two, maybe just a couple. Just a couple kind of like really unpleasant things happen, and usually eBay fixes it like that. Like I had somebody that I bought something from and they didn't ship it, and then I waited like a month or something, and then I finally messaged him, was like, hey, is this going to be sent? And then they sent it and it showed up broken. And then I was like, well, okay, well, I can send it back to you and we can just do like a refund. And they were like, well, I already spent the money. And so I was like, okay. So that's like one instance, but like I've bought so much on eBay. And like I said, I messaged eBay about it and they like fixed it instantly. So let's see. Who inspires you creatively? So many people. That's a hard thing to get down to, just because I see it everywhere coming from so many people, and I think that's probably how it works for most people. Obviously the people that jump out at me, Tim Burton, that's one of the biggest. So I'm not sure, like a bunch of different things, Dark Shadows, stuff that I've mentioned a lot. Like those are the things that are really inspiring to me. Let's see. Any ideas for things to place above a fireplace mantle? So mine is a little out of shot at the moment, but old vintage TV lamps. I really, really love those, especially ones with cats. And like a lamp, it really depends on how big the mantle is because sometimes they're very big and sometimes they're small. Um, Plants, potted ferns. I love if you look at antique Victorian photos of like rooms that are decorated, you can find all sorts of really cool um, sort of inspiration from those. And one of the things that I see a lot is that people had ferns in those rooms. It's like it was a very common thing to have ferns all over the place. And I kill plants. That's something I'm not physically capable of doing is keeping plants alive. So I just have a bunch of fake like ferns all over the place. I just feel like it warms it up. Let's see. What are your favorite flowers to plant? The question should be, what are your favorite flowers to kill? I absolutely love planting roses and forgetting to water them. So, um, I'm trying to think any gardening projects in the future. I would. My mom's actually unbelievably good with plants. She knows so much. She has so much knowledge. My next door neighbor, Luann, actually she's like a horticultural specialist, which I hope I pronounced that correctly. But she's got tons of knowledge. So if I do something like that, I would probably bring somebody in with a lot more knowledge than me. Because if you want to learn how to murder plants, I would be an amazing teacher for that. Let's see. I think these look dry to me. I think we are ready for our next step. So I've got one last bowl right here, and I'm going to mix a cream color. So let me go, I'm going to look for white. And a little bit of yellow. A touch of red, not too much because it'll go pink so fast. And then a touch, hopefully. These things are unpredictable. I'm hoping for just a drop of black. And let's see. I'm kind of running out of brushes to mix with. So let's use this. Let's see what color we get. You really don't want something at this point. You don't want something super vivid. You want something kind of aged looking. And a little bit more yellow than that, I think. Apparently a lot of yellow. Maybe just a tiny, I'm going to put a little droplet of red on this piece of paper because I don't even want a full drop. I just want to get a little bit off of there and see what that does. Because like I said, red can go very far, very fast. A little bit more. What we are going to do with this cream color is do a few little detailed accents around that border that we painted. And I think that will look really pretty and fun. See, so far I have not hit that threshold where it starts just looking pink, which is definitely not what you want, but doing a little tiny bit at a time is a good way to get the exact shade that you are trying for. I really almost only ever buy like primary colors and then blacks and whites because you can mix them together and get any color you can think of from it. Maybe a lot more red is what I... All right, I take it back. I'm going to do one full drop of red in there. I don't want it to look too sallow. I do want it to look warm. There we go. Okay. Kind of like a coffee cream color, I guess, is what I'm trying for. I feel like that's going to work. Okay. So now I've got a bunch of really fine point brushes. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, the zoom is not happening on that. So I'm looking for a really fine point brush. And again, let me preface that I have not done this before. I'm experimenting. I'm really, really hoping that this works out well. And we're about to find out. So let's start. Okay. Well, actually, you know what the truth is? If this doesn't work out, you can just paint it black. It's not even going to be a big deal. So, because we're going right here on this outer border. And we're kind of just trying to make these old-fashioned-y looking like accents. And you really don't have to go crazy. This can be pretty subtle. Let's see. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing there. But let's see. It's just not going to focus, sadly enough. Let's see. Okay, so I've got that one kind of. Autofocus is off. I know, and I can't. I'm fearful that I would mess something up if I tried to fiddle with that right now, but can you guys see little Poof's face kind of like nosing in over here? Let's see. You can kind of see, I'm just doing like a little bit of like that accent right there. It's not quite like it's not a fleur-de-lis. I'm not exactly sure what you'd call it. And then I'm going to go through, and now this is where it gets dicey. I'm going to try to do a bunch of even dots all along. And this is a very subtle little touch. But I feel like it will give it that old-fashioned kind of look that I wanted. to be perfect. You can kind of just go along at your own pace. They don't have to be perfectly even. And I just feel like it gives it like a lot of things from like the Victorian era had like little subtle details here and there. Oh, Poof! Oh no! Okay, he just, hold on. Oh, Poof, it's okay. He stuck his little paw in the Mod Podge. Oh, it's okay. Oh, not too much. Okay, you're fine, you're fine. He's a little nutball. I'm trying to think. And just to get a bit of something extra right there, do a little dot. And I'm already really liking what I'm seeing this do. This is going to be one of those things that you won't see it really from far away, I don't think. And again, if you mess up at any point while doing this, you can just take some black paint, the same that you used to paint the border, and go over to get rid of it. And if you find you don't have a really fine point brush sitting around the house, you might in your makeup kit. A lot of makeup kits come with a little something. The hashtag for this project, I'll say it every time I see that question, is creating with Christine. Okay, so there's one. And I don't think my autofocus is on, but maybe it is. Not quite. But I love the way that looks. just looks real old-timey. Where did you buy the bubble glass? The vintage frames that I ordered actually came with it. But I think if you go on I know for a fact on eBay you can get bubble glass in just about any size or dimension that you want. And I bet there's websites that also sell it that currently make it. It's tricky to find in person, I will say that. If you guys like this episode or this live stream craft along, the episode where I'm gonna actually be doing like an actual have a real that incredible painting put into an old frame is going to be a lot more involved and really incredible. I'm actually really excited about that episode because I've found a really beautiful old tattered frame that has like pieces of the molding missing, and I'm going to show you how to create new molds for that sort of stuff. And so you can repair like a super old frame to look really beautiful again, even if it has broken off pieces right now. All of my little dots are kind of like everyone next to it is a little bit different. But that's pretty okay for something like this. If anything, it sort of makes it a little bit more magical and pretty. When people look at something close up and they realize it's actually hand painted and not just done by a machine. This is the last little part. We're on the home stretch. Perfect. Okay. I am really liking how that looks. Okay, I'm going to set these aside. Or set that aside over here. Hopefully not make a giant mess. Close up my paints. And then obviously I'm going to have to frame it on camera so you guys can see how it actually looks in its finished thing. Come on, Bernie. Hello. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm always looking for something. And I don't know how your craft area looks right now, but mine just mine looks like a giant mess. What are you doing? Cookies? No. She says no. Okay. Let's see. Convex glass. Yeah, that's what I think I always called it, bubble glass, and then I ultimately saw people call it convex glass. So, which makes sense. It's convex. Okay, I'm going to get the convex glass and a few little nails to affix this in. So I've got, let me show you. Got a bunch of little tiny nails that I'm going to use to bring these pictures back together. And let's see. Set one of these up here and show you this. Okay, so I've got my frame down. I actually don't think I can do this that way on camera. I will have to show it like this because the convex glass can't be set down because it will touch the surface before anything else. And I should actually probably wipe it off because I've been fiddling with it. And you don't really want fingerprints all inside of it. So we're going to take our picture, put it face down inside of there. And then I'm just going to take some of the nails. So because I affixed this to project board, the original backing I'm just going to have to store somewhere. But the way this frame works is it has little holes that you can just put a nail through. And because the project board is foam core, it'll just theoretically pop right in there and it will hold very well. And I'm going to do this to both of them before I do like the reveal where you get to see exactly what it looks like. But I'm going to take. Okay, I'm kind of jazzed about that. So we got this. Put a glass right in here. This would be a terrible time to accidentally break the glass. Where did you get your paper towels? That's terrible. I'm trying to think. I've had quite a bit of them stocked. I've always gotten those like giant like bundles of them and they last forever. She has paper towels in bulk. I picture like a mob of people coming. I have probably a total of maybe 8 of these rolls in my house. How much did the frames cost? Really not much. I think maybe $15. And they're antique frames. I mean, antique, I should, like maybe from like the 70s or something like that, or the 60s. I'm not sure. So they're not really expensive if you look for, you have to scour for a deal because there's always somebody who's going to try to ask for way too much money. You've been framed. I like that. All right. Now let me show you what those look like. Don't those look fun and spooky and ready to go up on the wall? So if you look at them closely, let me see if I can adjust the focus on the overhead camera. Hold on one second. Let's see. I just feel like it looks pretty and fun. And then you have like 2 of them to go on the wall as like a pair somewhere. I don't know. I feel like those actually came out super duper neat, I think. This is always one of those, when you do this on on camera. And again, this was just a project I thought, like, what is something I could do that would give you something to do that would, I mean, you most likely have supplies for in your house. Um, and I was actually expecting it to come out like a lot crappier looking than this. So I'm like, hey, that actually came out pretty darn neat looking. So, okay, yay. Well, okay, so this is a two birds with one stone. Well, actually, I don't even like that saying because I don't want to hurt birds. But this is twofold, or the out. I don't know. I'm having a stroke. I haven't eaten anything, so if that's what this sounds like, whatchamacallit. So now I had two empty spots on the wall in my house, and now I have a place to put them. So I'm feeling pretty good. So now you guys have learned something fun. Now I get to keep something cool and neat. And I feel like it's all working out really well. How far? So holy bejesus, 118. So I actually pulled that off in 3 hours and 18 minutes. So, and I have two of them. And I was talking the whole time, which normally, I'm just going to tell you right now, trying to chit chat while you work is super tricky to do. So I will, let me flip back over here so you can see. I think that's what QVC always does. They always like, they've got the lady talking about the jewelry and then they go back, they pan back over it and have it like glitzy flashing around. I will post these finished pictures and I will wait until you guys post yours too. So I'll probably like wait like a day or two, and then anything that I see that I can work, you can only pick 10 pictures, which is annoying, but I will see if I can post other people's stuff and tag you guys. So thank you so much for this. I hope this has been like a fun, weird distraction and you guys were able to do something fun for yourselves that you get to now look at. And, you know, in a couple years when this has hopefully all died down, every time you look at these hanging on your wall, you will be reminded of this very interesting moment in history. So stay safe. I love all of you. I hope everyone is going to pull through this okay and you enjoy yourselves at home. If you enjoyed this craft along live stream and you need more of this to get through all of this, just please let me know and I will do the very, very best I can. So stay safe and I will see you again very soon.